Does anybody else get the feeling that you're like, oh, I have a first draft, like now I can write the book? Hello, hello, hello. So today I am going to be doing sort of like a pre-editing vlog, I guess, with you. So I just finished my fourth book, which is called The Nutcracker Effect, and it's fun, multi-POV, Christmas theater. It's a great time. And I know that you're supposed to wait before you edit. And I actually am going to do that. So I just got edits back from a professional editor on my other book, literally this morning. And I know that I'm going to be working on those first, and then so I can start query that. So there might be quite a chunk between when I start editing this one versus the other one, depending on her comments. I'm so worried that's going to be a vlog too. And so my rule for myself was I need to figure out, or like sort of put enough of a pin on Nutcracker Effect before I go back into some kind of criminal. So I'm going to talk to you about some of my edits because I have thoughts on the edits that I want to do, and talk those through. And then I think I'm going to do a very like bare bones reverse outline, because this is multi-POV and there were 5. Now I guess there's going to be 4. I'll talk to you about that in a second. Love stories in it. And one of the things I'm worried about is that they're just like all following the same trajectory. So the biggest like macro thing I have to do, or one of the biggest ones, is tracking like the overall plot of this performance Nutcracker competition with all of the love stories. And so I'm actually going to story grid it. Like for story grid it for real. So I'm super excited to do that. And I think it'll be really helpful to see the different arcs, because I don't, like, there has to be one singular all is lost moment, but at the same time, I don't want all of the love stories to be at the same positions the whole time. And I think I could see that really well with a graph. We'll see. I'm not going to do the full story grid in this video, by the way. I'm just going to start and try to get like a diagram together of the general shape of the stories, if that makes sense. So let's talk about some edits. So the book that I wrote has 40 chapters exactly, 6 POVs, 86,000 words. And the first change that I'm making that, kills me, it kills my heart, is I'm actually removing one of my POVs. Her name is Callie. She is wonderful. She has this beautiful little romance with Abigail. They're hockey players, and it's like this Christmas sweet thing, and it's so cute. And I got really good feedback on those chapters. But the other feedback that I got, I was working with a writing group, like a critique group along the way, was these guys aren't connecting to the story. Like, they're not connected to the Nutcracker very well. Like, the idea, my justification originally for their relationship was the Nutcracker happens, and that is a snowball effect. And so the snowball is rolling, and it is like the impetus for the start of their little love story. But it's not connected to like the main plot of this Nutcracker competition. And also, it is hard to write 5 love stories. Is it 5? Hold on. There was Callie and Abigail. 5 love stories. It's hard to write 5 love stories in a book, because that's a lot and this one was similar to another one, and someone was like, well, that feels like repetition. Like, it feels very similar. And I'm like, yeah, I was feeling similar beats and it was following a similar arc. And I'm like, okay. I do have to get rid of it, which is crushingly so sad. But quite honestly, like, they're not set up to affect the main plot. And every time, originally when I started it, I was like, that's fine. Like, they're going to affect it. It'll be there. But I wrote it and I was like, nope, like, writing them into this is really tricky. Still not there. So I have to get rid of Callie, but I'm going to keep her chapters. And if this was ever published, I could do like a free novella or a spin-off of Callie and Abigail, and it would be absolutely beautiful. So yeah, I love them so much. I made this decision probably around like 60,000 words, honestly, but I made myself finish writing all of her chapters so I can use it for like a little like 10,000 words something down the road. Because I actually like, we are always like, oh, I'll use it for something else, but I'm just going to use the story. It's just going to be its own little spin-off in the same world. It's going to be so cute. Free novella. We love it. Okay. Other big things that need to change here. So one of the things, and the sort of, I guess, the biggest one, and who was I listening to? Oh, it was Meredith Phillips Wright. She did a great video on revising your novel editing. I'll link it below. It was amazing. And she was talking about cause and effect. And one of the things she said really struck a chord with me. And so one of the risks I have with this multi-POV book is that since each character has their own little mini plot, like there's an overarching plot, but then each character has their little love story. And because of that, the early feedback was a bit like, some of these are feeling a bit like individual character sketches. And so I'm worried about the cohesiveness of the cause and effect. And so I want to do, especially in my opening chunk, which is now not 6 chapters, it's 5. Bye, Callie. Especially in 5, is I'm going to want to think about in my editing how in each chapter I can set up like a Chekhov's gun, basically, that I can then put in the very next chapter. I have this already, and where 2 of them are really closely linked. They're all really closely linked, but you kind of have to get to the end to see it. So it's like let's look, shall we? It's chapter 3 and chapter 4. Chapter 3, I set up Chekhov's gun. Chapter 4, you see it, and then you see it play out. I want to have that in every single chapter. So I need like a 1 to 2 and a 2 to 3. It needs to feel like a passing of the baton more so. So like, and something that the characters do in each chapter, even if it's very, very small, needs to then affect the next chapter. And I need to just do this more explicitly because some of them are really standing on their own and they're focused on setting up that character's love story. But I think that this is going to make it really exciting, and it's going to be a fun challenge to figure out how to do that even in small ways. So it's like little, like almost like little Easter eggs, or like boom, 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 which is what a book should be. Which is what a book should be. But with multi-PV, it can be tricky because, you know, the one character does something and it's easy to make that not have an effect until you get back to their POV. But we don't want to do that. Other edits and notes that I have written down, these are just, I don't know, I think it's fun to hear about what people are editing and doing. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit and then I'll go do my spreadsheet. But things like, oh yeah, there's some things in my opening chapters where I missed opportunities for conflict. So in one chapter, it ends with the character saying, oh, I really hope that I get to stage manage for X person's cast. And someone pulls a prank in one of the chapters and like, I didn't really get into the fallout from that prank. So with those, there's just small things kind of just like, but the small things, but they'll make a big difference of setting up and taking advantage of these like things that I've set up for conflict, but I haven't pulled on. So for example, instead of the person being excited to be in X's cast, X not being EX, but just like X, she needs to think that that would be the worst possible thing ever, because then it happens. And so if she wants it to happen and then it happens, that's boring. Nobody wants to read that. So she has to not want it to happen, and then it happens, and then we have conflict, which we love. And this other one for the fallout of the prank, just going back into that cause and effect. And again, his prank is like almost discovered by someone, and there's there's an opportunity for a much bigger, oh shit, moment than I have. So I'm really excited to get into that. The next big edit I have, and this was again from early reader feedback, our critique partners just like the best people ever. I love them so much because like they only read the first 15,000 words or so, but already made me aware of like what I need to think about and what the pitfalls are, and they're guiding a lot of these edits already. And it's not even ready for beta readers or anyone to actually read it yet, but woo woo. Okay, so yes, so there is this big incident in the past of the story that involves all of the characters now that Callie is gone. Bye Callie. She also wasn't part of this incident, so she couldn't be there. She was too young to be in part of the incident. She couldn't be at the concert, so she didn't have a part. So anyway, she has to go. She has to go live in her grade 10 world in her own little novella. But basically what one of my readers said was, hey, like you're setting this up, but it feels almost a little bit anticlimactic. And so the suggestion was basically, and my plan is to, through each of the first 5 chapters, show the incident or reveal a little bit more about the incident from each one's perspective. And so we will start probably with like what legit happened, just a couple lines on it in the very first chapter or the second chapter. It might be the second chapter, just so the first one, we keep that as a curiosity seed in the second chapter. And then like a little bit of a fallout in the third chapter. And then by the time, and so like the surprise will be by the time we kind of get to the end, we have more of a sense of how all the characters are linked together. And by the time we get to the end, to the last chapter in the opening, which is from the 5th character's perspective, at that point, that is when I'm going to have her explain why. I don't think there will be a flashback. There could be. I have the flashback written. But I think that will be a lot more dramatic. So like you don't know what this thing is. A chapter or 2 in, 2 or 3 chapters in, you hear what happened. You hear about the fallout. You hear what happened. I don't know which one goes first. You hear a little bit more about it. You get a clue or 2. And then like towards the end of that first act, you get why it happened. And that, I think, will be really, really interesting. Because I kind of want people to... So we start the book with a character who I think is going to be hard for people to love after the opening. Like, she's kind of hard to love. She's an antagonist. She's an antagonist. And my goal is for everybody to love her, because I kind of love her. Even though she's the antagonist, I'm like, oh, Sophie, you poor thing. So yeah, it's partially like a villain origin story, but it's not really. She's the antagonist, and that sucks. So we start with the antagonist point of view, and then right before like the last chapter of the opening is from the real, true protagonist's point of view. And I kind of want to build it up so everybody sort of doesn't like the protagonist or is like unsure about the protagonist, and then you get to her chapter and you love her after that chapter and you're like on her side and you're like super surprised. Maybe. I think that's the experience I want the reader to have. Or maybe if they like hate her, they'll just keep hating her. But I think it would be so hard to hate Charlotte. She's so great. So whatever. So that's one thing I'm thinking about. Other things. I have 2 of my love stories. I need to really clarify the misbeliefs or like the obstacles to love for the one, for her and the love interest. Because the misbelief's always been like a little murky to me. It's basically like the reason they can't get together is she doesn't want to get distracted from the show. Which is like it's not that strong of a misbelief, and there's like little threads hanging around like parents in the middle of a divorce and Hanukkah and stuff like that I just haven't really put together. So that character and her love story need some work. And then the other story, which is their names are not Ron and Isabella. Why did I write that down? Is Lewis. Lewis and Isabella are together. And Lewis is a great character, and I love writing from his perspective, but for some reason, I found him really hard to write in the middle, and so he has a couple of scenes that are just like 400 words. So I didn't really dive into, in the first draft, what their relationship is like. Like, their relationship is feeling hard to write because I just haven't really truly written it. I've written the beginning and I've written the end. There's not much in the middle. So that is going to need a lot of work in this story, and hopefully the large scale plotting is going to, help. Another change I'm making is I have a character named Isabella, and she was originally an exchange student from Argentina, and she was gonna make empanadas. And she was always Argentinian, but then I did go to an empanada party in December. I don't know, I've talked about this weirdly a lot on social media, this one party that I went to, because it was the first time at the party I got my first ever request from an agent. And so like it really sticks out in my mind, and I was like, oh, I love this. I'm gonna have them do an empanada party. But for various reasons, including wanting to do like a flip, like a twist on the running to the airport trope, she's actually gonna be from Quebec. And her name's gonna be Isabel, and she's now French. And I'm excited for that because it's also Canada, and I'm Canadian, and I have spent more time. Have I? No, I've spent more time in Argentina than I have in Quebec, but whatever. I really want to like bring home that Canadian feel. And I think that just feels more, I don't know, it feels better. And also it makes more sense for like this person to be either doing an exchange or staying with her cousins. I haven't quite decided which it is right now. Like just from Quebec, like an hour plane ride or whatever away versus all the way from Argentina. Because we don't have a lot of like high school exchange students in Ontario. So it's possible, like I have to do a little bit of research because Quebec has a different high school system. And so she could be like moving with her English cousins to finish school for X reason, which I already actually set up. The Bouchards, who Isabel stays with, Abigail Bouchard, who was Callie's love interest, goodbye. Every time it's like, goodbye, like, miss you. They are French, and so she's just gonna be French instead of making empanadas in a French household and it being confusing. So they're French now, and maybe they'll make some cookies or something. So that's great. I have a few other things, like a character, kind of, some of the things are like where characters start, because I love their arcs, but where they started at the beginning, there's some ambiguity. Like there's some ambiguity about how the school works that I need to iron out. There's some ambiguity about how well people knew each other beforehand. So that's the one thing that's good, but also bad about writing it in a high school. It's, you have your meet cute, but they already know each other. And so, why now? Why today? Why is the time that they are suddenly interested in each other now is a question that I have to figure out how to answer. So that's interesting. I have a lot of those where I'm like, it's like, what? I know what happened at this big event. I'm like, but in between that event in June and December when we're putting on the Nutcracker, how have everybody's relationships changed? How much contact have they had? Who's been completely avoiding who? Et cetera, et cetera. And like, who liked who ahead of time, or who starts liking someone in this story? Because I think that is important too. I think actually at the moment it kind of reads like everybody already liked the person, but I need to have at least one love story where they're like surprised. They're like, what? Oh, I like you, So there's that. That's very exciting. And then, I have a few other notes. I think everything else is pretty small, and I'll figure out through the spreadsheet, but small things like I've thought about a prologue, just better setting up like the competition. I don't think I need a prologue, but I have a note that I want one of my characters to be more of a mess at the start. Based on the incident, a lot of the early reader feedback was like, well, she seems fine. I'm like, okay, she has to be a mess. And I have a note, thank Quinn, season 3 of Glee. If you know, you know. There's a few moments early on that I think I need at least like flashback moments. I need to at least write for myself, maybe include in the manuscript, maybe not. But those I think are really important scenes to show. Oh, and then I have another character who is a side character and who only showed up in like the 3rd chapter. He was just there as a friend, helping with this prank. But I reread it and I wrote my note. I was like, I miss Ron. Can he please be a part of this? And so I think Ron is gonna come and be part of this show. He's gonna be on the crew or cast or something. I don't know. I have to figure it out. But also, it'll help this character that he's best friends with, like, have someone to talk to. Like, I really think it will help the conflict a little bit there, because he and his love interest are supposed to be like more of a longing love story. Like, they're not supposed to like necessarily like get together until closer to the end. I've mentioned before that this is very like inspired by Love Actually. And if you look at Love Actually, which I'm going to do a like big analysis of for myself, and maybe I'll share it here. If you're interested in that, let me know. But a lot of those, like, they don't even kiss until the end. Usually you have the lovers like maybe really getting to like starting to dance around each other either at the break into 2 or the midpoint. But in Love Actually, they just like, they're just there or like the little boy, you see him getting like learning how to drum and stuff, but you never actually see him with Joanna until the end. Or the couple who does all the naked stuff, like he doesn't ask her out till towards the end. The Prime Minister and Natalie, like, again, nobody's kissing. So he's one where like nobody's kissing in his. That's the plan until the end. So I have to give him, I have to have an outlet for what's going on for him. Anyways, that is part 1 about my editing thoughts right after finishing the book. Obviously, I will have lots more plans and thoughts once I've read it again and once I do my reverse outline. So, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.